All right, Danny Parkins is here, Breakfast Ball on Fox Sports 1, longtime Chicago radio host. Where are you living right now? Are you in New York City?
I'm in New York City in a corporate apartment. I've been flying back to Chicago every weekend for the last 12 weeks to see my wife and 2 young kids, and they finally move out to New York. We'll be renting a house starting this weekend. So it actually finally becomes real. It's been weird. I've been in New York City Sunday night through Thursday night, 4:30 wake-up calls for the morning show, and then flying back and doing 36 hours of parenting on the weekends. It's been weird.
36 hours of parenting, more than enough, I would say, by the way.
You know who disagrees with you? My wife.
I had a feeling. So a couple of things on that. Number one is I moved to LA 3 months before my wife did, and the Ringer was launching. I had to be out there, all that stuff. So I did not get a corporate apartment. I got an empty bungalow that we were renting. So we got the place we were renting in May. My wife was going to move out at the end of the summer. She just had a bunch of work stuff and life stuff. We had to break the lease, all this stuff. And the reason I tell the story is that it's the weekend or the week of the Warriors Cavs final, like the epic, obviously LeBron block one. And I needed a TV, so I just went to like Costco and bought a TV and put it on the ground. I had no furniture in this house. There was a mattress on the floor, and I put a mattress on the floor, and then I put the TV literally on the ground. And then I was like, well, I need a chair, so I went out and bought a lawn chair, and I just put it in the living room. And it was literally the meme of like men will literally live like this. And like for like 2 months. And I set it up just to watch the Cavs Warriors final. And I just kept it like that basically until my wife got there and the rest of the furniture did. I owned 3 things: a mattress, a lawn chair, and a Costco television. And that's all I needed in life.
Had you ever been happier?
I can't contain my happiness thinking about that one summer where I just sat there and I would just like, I think that like, there's something, for some reason I had to buy a ton of water. Like we didn't have a filter or something because I wasn't going to go buy that. So I just buy jugs of water and like, and it was great. Take me back.
Yeah, man. So it's so funny. Like I miss my kids terribly.
Yeah.
And
I wouldn't have kids back then. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Like I miss my kids terribly. And there's a tremendous amount of guilt on how much of like my wife works full time, morning parenting, evening parenting, getting a house ready to be sold, getting a house ready to move out. Like way too much of this is falling to her. And so there's a tremendous amount of guilt around it. And then there's a lot of dinners for one.
Yeah.
I'm eating really well in New York, like a lot of pastrami sandwiches by myself. So
there it is.
It could be worse.
I get it. All right, let's talk about football. So you're from Chicago.
Yes, sir.
You know, are you a longtime Chicago radio host? You know Chicago and Bears anxiety really well.
Yeah.
The team is 4-4. Mm-hmm. Could be better. It could be worse. But I think that we talked about this months ago where Bears fans are always going to default to here we go again. Just like any other fan base that just feels the same thing over and over again. Miami Dolphins fans were like immediately they're like, oh, you know, they lose 2 games in a row and it's like, oh, Mike McDaniel's Joe Philbin. Like, no, he's not. But like that's just how your brain is wired and you give up. And I think we're seeing that now. And I think that as soon as I saw a really funny meme a couple days ago that was like the Bears blame cycle where it's like blame the coach, blame the offensive line, blame ownership. And then eventually at the end is blame the quarterback and then start anew, right? But there's like 7 or 8 phases of blame. And we're at the blame the coach phase right now. And I'll just put it to you. We'll start here. If you're a Bears fan, you're feeling on November 7th, what, Danny?
I think that the meme is pretty accurate.
Yeah.
You know, Bears fans are patient, man. Justin Fields had his name chanted in his last game at Soldier Field. Not his first game, not the first game of his last year. At the last game, when they already had had the number 1 pick from Carolina, when it was abundantly clear to anyone who had any ounce of neutrality that he wasn't going to be the dude and that they were going to have a chance to draft the dude in Caleb Williams. So Bears fans are patient with the player. The thing that is gnawing at me is that I am offensive coach biased.
Me too.
I think most people are, right? If you follow the entire NFL. There are still a pocket of Bears fans. Defense wins championships, control the line of scrimmage, run the ball, win
the 85 Bears crew that will never die.
And listen, on some level, I think we overestimate how much people watch teams that aren't their team. Like, we do it more in the NFL than any other sport, fantasy, gambling, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, etc. But most people, it's the 3 hours a week that they watch their team. And Bears fans have seen good Bears teams, but Bears fans have never seen a good Bears quarterback, right? This has been beaten in ad nauseum, only franchise.
And they see the exact opposite in like Aaron Rodgers, where it's like it might as well be someone from another planet coming in into Soldier Field once a year to just put on an absolute fireworks display.
Correct. And there is everyone knows the numbers by now, only franchise to never have a 4,000-yard passer, only franchise to never have a 30-touchdown passer, not 5,000 yards, not 40 touchdowns, 4,030. So there is like a real belief of like, it'll never happen for us. So you got to figure out ways to win other ways. So Bears fans are really patient with the quarterback, and they've got a very low bar. Like, can you be better than Jay Cutler and Eric Kramer? We love you. The coach thing, though, what is killing me right now is that I said on the radio every day for weeks when the season ended that they needed to fire Matt Eberflus because of the opportunity. Like, not that he had lost the locker room, not that the defense hadn't improved after they traded Montez Sweat, not that he didn't seem like a nice enough guy and a fine enough leader.
Yeah.
But when the Bears drafted Mitch Trubisky, they forced him on John Fox. And then it didn't work, and they fired John Fox and hired Matt Nagy. So it was two coaches and two systems in 2 years. And then to try to save the front office's job at the end of Matt Nagy, they forced Justin Fields on Matt Nagy. And then Justin Fields, they fired Matt Nagy, and they hired Matt Eberflus, and it was two coaches and two systems in 2 years. And I was like, you just can't risk it. You cannot risk doing that again to Caleb Williams. If you had their cap space and their defense and the number 1 pick and the number 9 pick, Jim Harbaugh would take your call.
Yep.
Ben Johnson would take your call. Whoever the best offensive mind that was capable of being a head coach would take your call, as opposed to you retain Matt Eberflus, the best offensive mind capable of being a coordinator is going to take your call. Shane Waldron, Cliff Kingsbury, et cetera. Now, obviously, Kingsbury's worked out great in Washington. He interviewed for the Bears job. He wanted the Bears job. He coached Caleb. So the idea or the thought that the day after the season this year, which happens to be January 6th, 2025, they are going to do it again. Yeah, and they are going to fire Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron,
or Bears fans are going to storm Hallis Hall.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I brought up the date on the calendar. Like, pitchforks and torches time, except for something that matters. You know, the Bears' offense, not democracy.
Of course, democracy.
So it's just that thought of that future headline of doing the same thing to Justin that you did to Mitch and doing it to Caleb, when it was so obvious and preventable, is mortifying. I mean, it's nothing short of mortifying. Doesn't mean that if he's not the dude, that he's the dude that he can't overcome it. Obviously he can, like Justin Herbert, right? He's that dude. He's had different coaches. He's had different play callers, but I think it's stunted his winning on his rookie contract. Yes. Not having continuity, right? And so if they had gotten it right definitively at coach and coordinator, you would, in theory, be set up for next year to do what the Texans did this offseason and bring in your version of Stephon Diggs and Danielle Hunter and try to go all in on a rookie quarterback contract. Now, if they fire Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron, maybe they still will make personnel moves like that, but they'll be starting in a new system. They'll be learning a foreign language all over again. It won't be mastery of the system in year 2 and all of that stuff. So that is what terrifies me, is that they are allowing history to repeat itself again with another hopeful savior of the franchise at quarterback.
I am of the opinion, this is just a broad head coaching idea I have. So I'm a big fan of continuity and all this stuff, but there also has to be like a proof of concept. And there's like a Warren Buffett thing. Like if you think about a business, the first question you have to ask is, if the business started today, would it look like this? Like, or like if it was reinvented every single day, would it look the way it does, or would it look somewhere else? Like that's the test about newspapers, right? Like you're not going to buy a newspaper like as a property, as an entity, because you would never start a newspaper today. You would never start a newspaper today. What should you be thinking about that?
I always say that about baseball. If we were starting the sport of baseball tomorrow, it wouldn't be 162 games.
It wouldn't be 3.5 hours. The Chicago White Sox wouldn't exist. But I think that with head coaches, you need to think every year, if you were hiring for this year, would you hire this person? And not in a million years would you have hired Matt Eberflus with that track record to be Caleb Williams' coach. You would never do it. And if you said, conversely, if you said to Matt Eberflus, justify your job right now, his argument would be bad. His argument would be abstract. It would have to be some level of blame on prior regimes, on Ryan Poles, on Justin Fields. And I don't think he has a case to be made for why he should get the vote from Bears ownership. And that to me is why I think you move on unless there's material. I wouldn't have brought him back, but I also wouldn't have brought back in like Mike McCarthy. Like I'm all about giving people who seem like they're on the right track as a long time to cook and a long time to fix it. And if you have done it, you should be able to do it again. I truly believe that, especially at the college level. Like, I don't like, not to make this college, but like Mike Norvell right now is 1-8 at Florida State, and everybody thinks he should be fired. We went 13-0 last year, and 2 years before that, had one of the best portal hauls of all time. So you give him time because clearly there's somewhere in the middle is the actual skill of Mike Norvell. But if you're Matt Eberflus, and you've shown very little other than Ryan. Every time I ask people in the league, and I do not know Bears people very well. I don't. I've met Ryan Poles like once. I've met Matt Eberflus like once, but every time it's like, well, Poles believes in Eberflus. Okay, that's great. I believe in lots of people, but I'm not gonna keep them employed like to do an extremely important high stakes job, and that's just where I'm with it. So I'd move on from him. I have a couple of questions. I'm going to start here. If someone came to you, and you have to go into a little bit of homer mode, I know, but I'm sure there's a case to be made. If there's a Bears fan, he's despondent, and he's wearing a huge bear, like a literal bear hat, and across his back, and he looks like DiCaprio in The Revenant, right? And he comes to you and he says, Danny Parkins, explain to me why Caleb Williams' career is not going to end up like Justin Fields and Mitchell Trubisky. You say what?
He's got an it factor that Justin Fields had as a leader, but that he didn't have on game day. Like Caleb Williams, man, carries himself in a way and makes plays. And yet some of them have been against Jacksonville and Carolina and the Rams defense or whatever. But you can't deny, if you're watching every snap, that Aaron Rodgers, Pat Mahomes thing isn't in there.
Yeah.
Crazy arm angles, crazy escapability, crazy arm strength, crazy quick release, mic'd up moments of, dude, like I'd run through a brick wall for this guy, voted him a captain as a rookie. Like there's just been some things. Like he said after the Hail Mary, it's like, we didn't move on from it fast enough. Mm-hmm. And he was pissed about it. He had a great line where he was talking about, he's like, bad teams, no one leads. Good teams, the coaches lead. Great teams, the players lead. Like the dude was created in a lab to be a franchise quarterback. He really was. I think he might be bust proof. I really do. I think I don't think it's on the table that he's awful. I don't think it's on the table. You seem surprised by that.
Everybody's bustable.
So you think it's possible that if the Bears would have drafted Mahomes instead of Trubisky, that Mahomes busts?
I think there's yes. I just think that if you run the Doctor Strange 1 billion simulations, 100 billion simulations, he doesn't hit on every single time. And here's the problem. Okay. So Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes solved each other's problems. Andy Reid had game management problems. He had timeout problems. He had no urgency late in games. We saw it in the damn Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And Patrick Mahomes is now that Tom Brady's gone, the most clutch player in the sport. And he's going to be the most clutch player of his era. And we're going to talk about his ability to come back down from 10 points for the rest of time, right? So that's one. Andy Reid solved Patrick Mahomes' problem. Patrick Mahomes was doing way too much in college. He was trying to put the franchise on his back at all times. He probably weirdly had to learn how to win because of that and kind of learn how to grind it out. But it was almost like written in the stars these two guys found each other. And everything would be totally different. I mean, it's like when we think about us, like you and I, like not meeting our wives. Like it's the end of La La Land where they're like imagining the different realities. Like,
yeah,
it is perfect that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes found each other. If Patrick Mahomes goes to Chicago, he's not dealing with Tyreek Hill. He's not dealing with an all-pro offensive line.
Of course.
He's not dealing, in some cases, with they had one big problem. They wouldn't have sat. They wouldn't have had Alex Smith. They wouldn't have had the infrastructure where Mike Kafka is basically his personal quarterback coach, while Eric Bieniemy and Doug Peterson deal with the offense as a rookie. And you get into, and I'll give you a great example. They had a fatal flaw their first year was their defense. Their second year, they fired Bob Sutton. The second year as Mahomes starts, so third year in the NFL. Are the Bears that aggressive where they say, you know what, we're selling out to just change our entire thing? Are we trading first-round picks for stars like the Chiefs did? Like every step was perfect with the Chiefs, and all of that was needed. It takes a village to create a franchise quarterback. And I do not think if Mahomes goes to Jacksonville that it's the same. If Mahomes goes to Chicago, that it's the same.
I didn't say the same.
No, I'm just saying there are scenarios in which does he get hurt more? Does he is he not able to take the top off the defense? Is he not able to have a Travis Kelce who sits in zone and just finds it and just like supernaturally good at space? I know you're not saying the same, but I'm saying that things – by the way, like he has not been particularly good this year, and they looked good on Monday night, but like they're undefeated this year because of the surrounding and the supporting cast. They have a franchise that is able to paper over – any mistakes he might have. The Bears cannot paper over a damn thing. I do not think Patrick Mahomes in different scenario is a 1,000,000% sure thing. I don't think any player is.
Okay, I mean, like, listen, if we're talking literal, like 1,100,000.
No, I know.
Thing,
yeah.
Like when I say bust, I literally mean like bust, not getting a second contract.
Yes, I know what we're saying.
Like failure out of the league. I do not think. I think Caleb Williams is way too talented that I don't see a world that the Bears could bears this up to the point where they don't want to give him a second contract, that he doesn't have a long enough runway here. I think he's already shown an ability, again, an it factor, a playmaking ability, a grasp of the offense, of like things that he does at the line of scrimmage. The game is like at times it feels overwhelming to him. Like the first 7 drives against that Washington game, it's 6 punts and a turnover on downs, and he's sped up and nothing looks easy. And then it's 2 fourth-quarter touchdown drives, one that ended up not being a touchdown because they gave the ball to a backup offensive lineman on the goal line for some reason. But like he kept he threw the terrible interception against Jacksonville, then had 4 straight touchdown drives. Like he has a moxie, an it factor. Like he carries himself like he belongs. And so my confidence in him really hasn't waned at all. And maybe that's that homerism that you attach to me, and it's hope trafficking. I will wear some of that. But there's just something about the kid that he's cocky and he's arrogant, but he's also humble. It's like he was engineered to be a superstar. He has no problem with Tom Brady comparisons and saying that he studies Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. Like, I want my star quarterback to be arrogant. And so could the Bears it up and have him reach a 60th percentile outcome of his career? Definitely. And that'll be tragic. That would be a sports tragedy. But I don't think that in 3 years the Bears are not picking up a 5th-year option on Caleb Williams and drafting another quarterback. I will come back on this show and what do you do? Hair gel? Mousse?
Hair gel. Yeah. Paste. Hair paste.
Hair paste. I'll take a shot of your hair paste.
Yeah. That sounds great. Sounds great.
I don't know why I came up with that.
I'll ready it. No, I don't think Caleb was going to bust. I'm just saying that everybody's a little closer to busting, and that's a bad phrase.
How about this? Can I ask you this?
Yeah.
Can I ask you this? Are you convinced that Jaden Daniels is going to have a better career than Caleb Williams?
So can I tell you something funny? I thought there's been a misremembering of how good RG3 was in his rookie year. And the reason I say that is so I did a prompt on Sunday for our show, and I was just like, tell me what the biggest change is in your franchise. And there were a couple people who were like, oh, we have the best Commanders fans. We have the best quarterback we've had in 30 years or 40 years or whatever. Joe Theismann, Nixon administration, whatever you want to say. I'm saying, guys, you don't remember 2012. I remember. That building was rocking. RG felt like he was the future of the sport. He gets hurt and everything goes down. And I think a lot of times, like, for God's sakes, this time last year, CJ Stroud looked like right now, this year, the Texans, all they had to do was fill a couple holes and they'd be in nailed on Super Bowl contention. They don't like that this year. They've been fine, but they've dropped games they shouldn't have had to. He's under pressure all the time. Again, geography is destiny for a young quarterback, for any quarterback. And so for me, yeah, Jaden Daniels, and by the way, Jaden Daniels came in ready-made. He's older, he played a ton of football. He did a couple of things really, really well, like slot fades, all of this stuff. Like we knew. I went on Bill Simmons' podcast in August and said immediately he's going to be one of the most exciting players in football because of how he's able to do 4 or 5 really easily translatable things. And so I think there's a bunch of guys like. I think Caleb Williams might end up having a higher ceiling, whatever. I just know the one thing I'm sure of is that Jaden Daniels is like going to get a second contract. Is going to play forever, right? But like, I can't tell you if Jaden Daniels is going to reach the Mahomes level. I cannot. So unless they can guarantee that. By the way, like, there's a bunch of like remember Baker Mayfield the second half of his rookie year where it looked like it was going to be Baker Mania, like. We've just seen this before. And like, I think we learn all the wrong lessons from young quarterbacks. I'll give you a great example. Jordan Love, second half of last year looks like the best quarterback in football. Does that mean he's on this trajectory, this linear trajectory where he's going to keep getting better? No, it means that he played a bad first half, a great second half. It means he's a volatile quarterback. It means he's a volatile quarterback.
On your show.
Yeah. Yes.
You called me a homer.
I did call you a homer. But we're seeing it now where he's a little more Brett Favre than Aaron Rodgers. And I think that it's entirely possible Caleb Williams catches up with Jaden Daniels. Now, let me ask you a question. What has impressed you? So assuming that you thought Caleb Williams was better than Jaden Daniels coming into the season, what has impressed you about Daniels that has either changed your mind or just changed the way you think about him?
Oh, I mean, the guy's slinging it all over the field with crazy accuracy, man. Yeah. Like, are you kidding? Like, yeah. I was like, my thing with Jaden in college was like, well, he's got like all-world speed on the outside and like talent superiority, and like that's not going to happen with Washington and Terry McLaurin, and we'll see. And obviously, Caleb is going to a much better situation than Jaden Daniels. Like, he's got Keenan Allen and Roma Dunze and DJ Moore. And DJ Moore had chemistry with Teddy Bridgewater and Kyle Allen. Surely he'll have ready-made chemistry with Caleb Williams. And Jaden Daniels comes in and is just slinging it all over the field. Like, I'm with you. Like, I knew he would be a great fantasy quarterback because of the floor that he would have with his legs and running the ball and all of that. But he's playing like Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
So all the respect in the world to the guy. It's been remarkable. It's given me tremendous Cliff Kingsbury FOMO, like that he could have been hired to be with the Bears and all of that. I did not see it coming. And so, yeah, I mean, what's impressed me about Jaden Daniels? I don't know. Everything.
Everything. Most yards off zone reads in the NFL I saw, most design scramble yards. Like it's something. Why should you bet with Caesars Sportsbook? 2 words: Caesars Rewards. Every bet brings you closer to the types of benefits only Caesars can offer. Hotel stays, VIP experiences, sports and concert tickets, and more. It's not just an app, it's an empire. A couple things. So before we get to broader stuff, let's talk about the NFC North, the division you know well. Lions going to win this thing?
The NFC North? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Listen, the Lions 2 years ago, the last 6 games looked awesome. And then last year, wire to wire, were awesome, right? Upset the Chiefs in the opener on banner night. And then we're in the NFC Championship game to a 3-point game against San Francisco. And then basically hit the ground running this year. They've got the best offensive line for my money in the sport. They clearly have the best running back duo in the sport. The Jared Goff stat right now that they have more touchdowns as a team than he has incompletions in the last 6 weeks. I have our researcher like double check it every day just to make sure that there hasn't been like a stat adjustment. It doesn't even make sense. So Jamison Williams before the suspension looked like he had finally become what he was supposed to be from Alabama. Obviously Laporta and Amon-Ra are awesome. I do think that the Hutchinson injury has not like really been exposed yet. Minnesota looked pretty good against them. And then the game against Green Bay was just like a weird sloppy game where Lions get 2 touchdowns on 4th down. Packers drop a touchdown pass. Like I didn't think that game was as lopsided as the final score indicated. And like, if that game was in a dome, like if that game was in Detroit, I think Green Bay scores a lot more points than they do. Like, I do think Detroit's defense is going to have them needing to play in some shootouts this year, like the Zadarius Smith trade, obviously, but he's not Aiden Hutchinson. So they're not a perfect team, but I do think they're a perfect offense. And so, yeah, I think that they are class of the NFC. San Francisco's offense with McCaffrey back can obviously go toe-to-toe with them, and they've got defensive questions with their injuries and how they've played, and I think they've dropped too many games in the first half to realistically have a path to the 1 seed. So, that game would be in Detroit if they match up there. But, yeah, I think they're the clear class of the division and the clear class of the conference.
I just think the Hutchinson thing has lowered their ceiling. They were going to win the NFC pretty easily until a couple weeks ago. So like I think there's the Hutchinson thing, like to go, and I saw that stat that basically like in the 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, since Hutchinson went out, they had less pressures than Hutchinson did in his last full game. Like that's what Hutchinson was. And like everything that he was able to do, like Aaron Donald is, if Next Gen Stats like compiles all this stuff, and all the stats were like, aside from Aaron Donald, Aiden Hutchinson is like the best ever at generating XYZ. So assuming Donald is like an alien, like Aiden Hutchinson was the best pass rusher at his position of his generation. And he's a different generation than Aaron Donald, but that's just the reality of it. And so it's a huge thing, a huge thing. I think their ceiling gets lowered, which leads me to this. Who's on the Chiefs line? If you're doing the big cat tiers, who's on the Chiefs line of Super Bowl contenders?
Nobody.
Okay.
No, nobody. Listen, I think that Greg Jennings on the show on Breakfast Ball gives me some crap for this. So he's like, you do your, like we call it like Parkins post position or whatever, like my weekly power rankings. And I weigh more than just this year for the teams that have been doing it for a while. Like, so like I took crap from Vikings fans for not having them higher, from Commanders fans for not having them higher. I'm like, listen, you guys are like in the team photo. I'm giving you respect, but to get you over Baltimore, Buffalo, Detroit, Kansas City, I need to see more than, I mean, the Vikings had the best resume in football through 5 weeks. And then what happened?
Yep.
But it was impressive. They beat the Packers. They beat the Texans. Like they beat the Niners. Like it was by far the most impressive resume through 5 weeks. Did anyone think they were the best team in football? No. There's a reason for that. So I do give the Chiefs back-to-back Super Bowl champions, undefeated, best head coach, arguably best defensive coordinator, one of the best defensive players, arguably the best run defense. He hasn't been playing like it, but I think we all trust Patrick Mahomes. Last 2 weeks has looked really good. Kelsey's looked better. Hopkins looked better in the last game. They'll get Pacheco back, et cetera. Like I think they deserve to be on their own line. And then so right below them in the tiers, Detroit, Baltimore, Buffalo. I think those 3 teams would be next for me with, I still am a believer in San Francisco. Part of that's the pedigree. Their yards per play is remarkable. They've just been bad in the red zone. Now they get the best red zone player of the last 2 years back in Christian McCaffrey. So I think that will help them. Obviously, big hot take. Christian McCaffrey will help their offense. And then the next team that I would say is Philly. Like,
what?
Yeah, man. Like, I don't trust the coach. The defense has been way better than I thought it was going to be. Okay, I've upset you. But if A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Saquon Barkley are healthy and Jalen Hurts isn't turning the ball over, and that last part, is a big if, but the last few weeks he hasn't been, I don't think many teams in the NFL are capable of slowing down that offense. So they're not a second-tier team. They're at the top.
I get what you're saying.
They're at the top of the third tier.
I'd put the Texans and the Commanders above the Eagles.
Ooh, side bet on who wins the NFC East, Philly v. Washington, you and me?
Sure.
Round of golf?
We'll do a round of golf. No, golf is too expensive now. Inflation. We'll do dinner. We're doing a dinner bet, which somehow which is a problem. I can't believe I just said that because it's probably going to end up being more than golf. I was going
to say.
We'll meet for dinner in the city in whatever suburb you end up in, and we'll get that going.
All right. NFC East bet. I got the Eagles.
NFC East bet. I got the Commanders. All right. I was going to ask you. It was funny because I was going to ask you Steelers, Commanders, or Texans, which one is likelier to win the Super Bowl. I don't care. I honestly don't even care about, like, will they win 11 or 12 games? But, like, the capability to win the Super Bowl is almost a different thing. And it's what you talk about when you're saying, like, you give more than 1 year of data, because learning how to win is a totally different thing. And knowing, like, and that's the one thing, like, when you talk to guys who've done it before, is like the Chiefs, sometimes when they have like a bad month or whatever, it's because they're working on one thing. It's almost like golfers. People know this with Phil Mickelson, where, like, Mickelson used to, like, miss 4 straight cuts or whatever because he was like, hey, I really got to figure out this thing, how to shallow my swing more. And that's all I'm going to work on this week. And that's how the greats do it. And now Tiger didn't do it because he didn't need to, because he was always focused and always dialed. But, like, some of these teams know how to take a step back and know how to not have their foot on the gas all the time. And so that, to me, is the hardest thing, is how to project that forward, what those teams will do. But of those 3, Steelers, Texans, Commanders, the most likely to win a Super Bowl is whom?
The Texans. The Texans. And by the way, I'm on the 27th floor and my windows and doors are closed and I can hear 1,000 sirens in New York City. So I apologize if that's coming through and ruining your show.
I ruined my own show, but I appreciate you asking.
I just want to acknowledge that I'm not being disrespectful. I cannot make it any quieter in here.
I'm in a soundproof booth in Bristol, Connecticut. So no sirens here.
Yeah, no, it's 100% on me. I'm the one who lacks professionalism on this terrific
That's right.
show.
That's correct.
I would be floored if the Commanders or Steelers won the Super Bowl. Like, absolutely.
Me too. We're just doing thought experiments here. But the Steelers thing, it's only because of Russell Wilson. However, this moonball thing seems like something. It seems like something. Add in that pass rush, that front seven. I don't know. Cam Hayward, I think, is leading the NFL in stops and run stops. Like, I'm just seeing something. I'm seeing a vision here.
Okay. Yeah, I need a little bit more than 2 games of him.
Me too.
I need a little bit more than 2 games.
Just seeing a vision.
Fully believe you're seeing a vision. I started the year, so I'm 18-10 against the spread on the show.
No big deal.
No big deal. I've only had 2 losing weeks out of 9.
No big deal.
I only picked 3 games, and so I go. I'm seeing the NFL very clearly.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have a vision. I will respect your vision. Yeah, when the Texans get Nico Collins back, it was through 4 games, but he was on pace to, break Megatron's record. Like I bet him for Offensive Player of the Year, and then he promptly had the terrible hamstring injury. So mush powers by me. But they won a playoff game last year. They were tied at halftime in Baltimore in the divisional round last year. Like they've been there before in big games. I know Russ has been there before. It's been a while, man, since Mike Tomlin and that defense has gone on a run. It's much more likely that Tim Tebow or Blake Bortles or Baker Mayfield hangs 35 on Mike Tomlin in the playoffs than his defense carries them on a run. That's just objectively true. He's got a losing postseason record since that Super Bowl win 16 years ago or whatever it's been. So it's going to take a lot.
Everybody has a losing playoff record.
Joe Burrow's playoff record is 5-2.
It's because yes, but he hasn't made the playoffs a lot. If Joe Burrow made the playoffs as often as Mike Tomlin would, he would have a losing playoff record.
We'll see.
He's not going to make it this year.
No, I agree.
No, I get what you're saying.
I agree. Like I'm saying I have not seen a Mike Tomlin defense carry that team or even be a difference maker in the postseason in a decade. So
I want to end this on one thing. I know what you're saying. Mike Tomlin, we should give retroactive coach and MVP awards. And so, like, the joke I always make is, like, remember there was a year that Earl Thomas got hurt in Seattle and the Seahawks just stopped playing defense. Like, they went from, like, the best defense to, like, he was out for a couple weeks and literally they turned into Baker Mayfield's Oklahoma defense. And it's like, actually, Earl Thomas should have won the last 4 MVPs. Mike Tomlin, having now seen not only Antonio Brown, but now Le'Veon Bell as well, and we know Ben Roethlisberger, him making that all work is one of the most special coaching jobs. I know they lost to Blake Bortles, but like even getting there, even not having like a locker room implosion that, like, unlike the world has ever seen, we got to give Tomlin a couple more Coach of the Year awards.
He has 0.
Yeah.
0 career coaching. Like, listen, I didn't.
Didn't Belichick only have like 2?
Yes. Yeah. I did it on the show. I was like, listen, I think that we in the media have overrated Mike Tomlin because I think we should celebrate ceiling more than floor. And he gives you a really high floor and he's a great leader and speaker and all those things. But the playoff resume has not been great for a long time. But mid-season Coach of the Year, I don't think it should be Dan Quinn, who's the heavy favorite. I'd give it to Tomlin. When was the last time Andy Reid won Coach of the Year? You probably know. Yeah, it was AP Coach of the Year. It was he hasn't won it in Kansas City, right? No, it's 2002. Yeah. 2002. Yeah. Like I always say, have I told you my theory? There should be 2 coaching awards. Coach of the Year and Coaching Job of the Year. So like, I like it. So like Dan Quinn is doing the best coaching job of the year. Like Kevin Stefanski, coaching job because you had Joe Flacco and you're cooking now with right. But the Coach of the Year should be like Andy Reid or Bill Belichick or Mike Tomlin or these guys who actually are the best coach in a given year. You just didn't exceed expectations, but for some reason it's the parameters of the job of the award. Right. So like I obviously love gambling on sports and football. Like last year was the first year since Andy Reid's been in Kansas City that they didn't hit their over on their preseason win total. Incredible. And they missed it by 1 game and won the Super Bowl. And they won the Super Bowl. Yeah, they went ahead and made that up in the postseason. They won the Super Bowl. Can you do – I have a question. I'm sure you can. Can you do combined regular season and postseason over-unders? Do you know what I'm saying? You know what? I don't think any book actually hangs that number. You should be able to, like, wins in a season, including.
Did I just change gambling forever?
I think you're just like a revolutionary figure. You just.
I just feel like that would be like, it just feels like something that you could be baked in. I'm not even sure what the over under would be for that, but like you're implying a certain amount of regular season and implying a certain amount of. Or you're implying like they could, if they go 15-1, they go over it, but then, they don't have to win any playoff games.
Then you don't have to win the playoff.
It's kind of an interesting game theory there. And do they get the bye? You have to bake in the bye.
Yeah, there's oh, it's crazy. By the way, Dan Quinn, Coach of the Year. That I saw Matt. I saw Matt Nagy win Coach of the Year in 2018. Because they went 12-4, and Mitch Trubisky had 24 touchdowns and 12 picks and was a Pro Bowl alternate. But Vic Fangio's defense had 36 takeaways. Are you telling me that this is more because of Dan Quinn or Cliff Kingsbury?
It's Dan Quinn. It's Jaden Daniels. Like Cliff Kingsbury has shown he's okay at play calling, but I don't. This is what Cliff Kingsbury is doing. Is he's taking the things Jaden Daniels does well, translating them to the NFL, and letting him cook. I don't think Cliff Kingsbury would have necessarily done this. He wouldn't have nearly as much success with Caleb Williams, which is less of a ready-made thing. He would not have the success with Michael Penix, not have the success with Bo Nix. Like, this is a perfect marriage right now. It's like these air raid kind of things melding with the slot fade stuff that Jaden Daniels does well, and then Terry McLaurin and like a bunch of these guys. Like, this is the perfect storm. I don't think – I disagree with your Cliff Kingsbury FOMO.
Okay, good. I'm lashing out in every direction because Shane Waldron has Keenan Allen running deeper routes than he's ever run in his entire career for some unknown reason. And they called a team meeting after 2 weeks to ask the offensive coordinator why they're not scripting the first 15 plays. So I got some serious buyer's remorse on Shane Waldron in Chicago, buddy.
Danny Parkins, breakfast ball. Thanks for coming on, buddy. Enjoy the 37th floor of your corporate apartment. Must be nice.
It's not. Back to reality, buddy. Suburbia, a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, a commute. It all becomes real.
Are you without naming suburbs? Are you moving near me?
Yes.
That's great news.
It's a rental. News. It's a rental.
We'll offline about this. We're gonna play some golf. We're gonna watch some Bears together. We're gonna watch the Bears turn this thing around. All right. See you, buddy.
Thank you, Kevin.